So when is the housing crash coming? When are all these bubble prices going to burst and everything come back down to the way it was? Hi, I'm Jeremy James with Lifestyle Real Estate. Let's talk about what's going on in the Lexington real estate market right now. All right, so I'm going to show you a graph right now. Yeah, it looks like a lot of spaghetti on there, and there are a few things that we want to look at that are all within this graph that kind of gives an overall picture of what we're looking at in our market. The first thing you're going to see is the three big arrows, and those are the Fed rate hikes as they happened on the calendar throughout the year. The long squiggly lines, that is the number of showings that have been requested through showing time in our MLS. So you watch those rise and fall. That's going to give our buyer activity as we've gone through the year. And that is for the last 3 years. 2020 is that light gray. 2021 is that darker, almost navy blue. And 2022 is the orange. That's our active year. The third thing we're going to look at are those kind of straight angled lines, and that is the Lexington Bluegrass Association of Realtors actual sales and listing data month to month. This is what's actually happened throughout the year. So I want to lay over the sales data over top of the showing data with the Fed data, and then looking at the housing inventory in months down below. So we've all heard the noise, housing market crash, the bubble's going to burst, the Fed rate are going to kill the market, home prices are going to fall, we're going to wait around and just wait for the home prices to come back down. Well, the truth is the only way home prices actually fall is if inventory really substantially increases, and I mean by a lot, or a massive number of buyers simply disappear from the market, creating zero competition. So let's start with the second one first, the buyers. The squiggly lines, look at the buyers. That's what we're going to be seeing, that buyer activity. This is the number of showings, the houses that the buyers wanted to actually go see. And we can see that for the first quarter, first 5 months of the year, we were significantly over 2021 numbers, which was still insane. We were probably looking at 25% increase in home showings within the first part of the year up until early May. We looked at almost 25% increase in home showings, which is crazy because 2021 was nuts and 2022 was absolutely nuts. What we saw over the last 2 months is the number of home showings has actually settled back down into norms for the last 2 years, to the point where we can even notice the seasonal adjustments. The holidays are beginning to show up. We're seeing those dips as we would expect. Now, what has the rate hike done to the buyers? Each time we look at one of those arrows, immediately after one of those arrows, we watch a drop in the number of showings. Those buyers either cool their jets, they back up, because we watched once that Fed rate went up just half point, 3/4 point, whatever it was, interest rates shot up probably 1.5 to 2 points, and people got a little sticker shock. A lot of them have backed out, but look at what happened each time. On this first one, it was down, it plateaued for a little bit, those interest rates started settling back down, and what happened to our activity again? It started to climb again, right back up to that 25% over last year's number of showings. That went along, it dropped really big. There's a real big drop there in early to mid-April. That's your Easter holiday weekend. That's what we talk about with seasonality. Those big holidays will cut into home showings every single time. That rebounds straight back up. We shoot right back up to 25% over. Then Fed hike number 2 came in early May, and that's where we have our steepest decline in the number of showings on the year. And it was almost as big, probably bigger than what we even saw with the drop from April. But almost immediately after that second rate hike, the mortgage rates began to trickle back down again, and what happened? The buyers started coming back up, about half as much as they were before that drop. After that, we start seeing a decline in the number of showings, and we're moving into that seasonality. Getting to the end of the we're getting to the end of the school year, etc., and people start slowing down on their home buying as we get closer to summer. That drops us straight into Memorial Day, which again we see as another dip. You can see that big dip there in 2021. 2022 does not dip as much, but it continues that slow, steady decline. Each one of these big dips is when all the media and everybody else goes hysterical. They're all screaming that the buyers are simply going away. We've seen a 25% drop, blah, 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 blah. The reality is that even those drops are higher than the activity we saw last year. Even the drops in 2022 were higher, if not equal to, what the activity we saw last year. So yeah, buyer activity dropped 25% after Fed rate hike number 2, and at the bottom of that drop, we were dead equal to our activity in 2021. But the media was screaming that all the buyers had gone away, and we're still as active as we were last year. So after Memorial Day, we come back up, again it rebounds, and we get into Fed rate hike number 3. This time the Fed did something a little bit differently, and they leaked the amount of increase to the media a little bit before, about a week before the banks and everything were able to adjust. We watched a slow, steady increase in the interest rate. They announced their adjustment, and then almost immediately we watched that mortgage interest rate begin to fall. And so that decline, that dip after Fed rate hike number 3 was not nearly as severe as those first two, and it even rebounds back up until right before the 4th of July, and we have a steep cutoff, again, matching the last 2 years for the 4th of July. After the 4th of July, what happens? We rebound straight up, and we are looking to be at normal levels as compared to the past 2 years for our showing data. So this idea that all the buyers have simply gone away is literally absurd. We have lost maybe 25 to 30% of home buyers who were what we would consider marginal home buyers. Those folks who were struggling to get the mortgage, who were right borderline on maybe affordability or whatever. And yes, these rate hikes and the increase in home values have cut them out of the market. That's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't that way. But the reality is that increase of 25% over the normal showing data was simply unsustainable. It was driving the prices up to an extreme level, to the point where we watched, I know me personally, we have about 35% increase in our appreciation over the last 2 years. That is simply unsustainable. Because it makes housing extremely expensive if that were to keep going, which is why the Fed had to raise the rates, thus the mortgage rates would follow in order to cool it. Now, there's a lot of folks screaming crash. What this looks like actually is a landing and not a crash, because we settle in after that third rate hike, we settle into almost identical numbers as far as showings are concerned, and seasonality, which is what we want. We want that trend to look similar to what it was last year. And that shows us that we have a good number of buyers who are still out there. So that takes care of the one leg of what would cause housing prices to fall, right? The buyers have to go away. So we know the buyers haven't gone away. A portion of them have, yes. But they were the marginal buyers, and we're still looking at probably 75% of the number of buyers that are active as we would have had in the first part of the year. So that brings us to leg number 2. Leg number 2 is inventory. Inventory is the number of listings that we have. And what we see here with the number of listings is that at the first part of the year, we started with 1,700. That dropped down as buyers moved into the market earlier. In about February, they started dropping in and started picking stuff up. But we weren't seeing the listings coming in just yet. And so the buyers outpaced the listings. And so as we get into spring, we watch the listings begin to come up, but the buyer data is still way high. Now, throughout the entire year so far, we've continually seen month by month from March on an increase in the active number of listings. We've seen an increase in new inventory, and we've seen an increase in homes sold from February on. This is what we would expect for a normal spring year. Now, currently, our numbers run about a month behind, simply because the housing data all has to be manually entered, and blah, 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 churns out, and about a month behind, you get the month previous numbers. So in about, it's the 21st today, so in about 10 days, we're going to see June's numbers. Now, what I'm looking for in June's numbers is what the actual inventory looks like, what the number of homes sold, and what pending sales look like. So I'm watching these 4 lines to what we're going to be seeing in June. Now, I've got two of those plotted for the day's numbers for today of actual inventory and pending sales. That is what's active number of listings on the MLS is just shy of 2,500, and pending sales, that's the ones that are under contract, that's 2,156. So both of those have seen a big increase since our last update, which was in May. And I'm suspecting that June will probably be splitting the difference between both of those numbers somewhere in there. Now, what does that mean? If our listing data has continued to increase, if our new listings and actual inventory has continued to increase to these levels, and our buyers have dropped by 25%, then what I'm expecting to see is that June's inventory rate should be close to 2 months worth of inventory. Then July should be close to probably 2.5 months worth of inventory. All right, so what does that even mean, months worth of inventory? If we didn't sell another house at the pace we're selling right now, how long would it take to sell off every one of the homes that we have currently listed? That's the month's worth of inventory. So for the first part of the year, the first half of the year, we've been at 1.7, 1.5, 1.2. We've been hovering right around 1.4 months worth of inventory. What does that mean as far as perspective is concerned? 3 months is a seller's market. 3 months is a seller's market. We are less than half of that. So this idea that simply the market is dying right now is simply absurd. We are less than half of that, or at least the data has shown that for the first part of the year, we are less than half of the 3 months buyer's market. 4 to 6 months is considered a balanced market, and 9 months is considered a drastic buyer's market, all right? So for some perspective, I expect June's numbers to show that we're about 2 months worth of active inventory, and in July, we'll be looking at maybe 2.5 months worth of active inventory. Maybe, depending on how these numbers shake out, we might be at 3. Now, again, that is still a seller's market. That still means that what's going on with the Fed rate hikes and everything else is landing the airplane and not crashing it. And you can imagine if you will, if you're on an airplane and you're flying into Lexington Bluegrass Airport, and the minute somebody realizes that the plane is beginning to descend, that they start screaming that they're crashing, that they're going to crash the plane. Imagine if every time something happened that the plane began to come down a little bit, that someone in the back just starts screaming that the plane was crashing. Well, all the media hype and everything else is just that. They're screaming that everything's crashing, bubbles bursting, all this kind of stuff's going on, and really what's actually going on is that we're landing the plane. It's coming in for a landing, and right now it's showing that we are on pace with last year's and the year before's numbers. We have cooled it to where we needed it to be, and maybe it'll come down a little bit more, which means that we're going to be negotiating prices, getting back some of those standard things that we do in real estate and that you can expect for your real estate transaction. It means we're probably not going to be selling over the weekend, but that's good, because as a home seller, now you can probably write contingent offers, close one, buy one on the same day, move, do all the stuff that we used to do that we haven't been able to do in the last couple years. So that's good. For buyers, it means that you're going to be able to negotiate prices and everything else, get some contingencies worked in, do some different things, maybe even get your closing costs paid for, etc. That's good too. It means there's some give and take. Does it mean that we're seeing a wholesale drop in real estate prices? Not in Central Kentucky, it doesn't. Not in Central Kentucky. If you go on the MLS, you go onto the different portals and everything else, you're going to start seeing listings that have had price drops. You know why? That was aspirational pricing. They priced it too high for their neighborhood. They got ignored because the buyers went around and bought other people's houses and they sat there. Now they realized that they had to do something, so now they're starting to lower their prices to get them back into normal levels. That's what aspirational pricing did. Over the last 2 years, you set that aspirational number, you might get 1 or 2 offers and you pick them up and you go. Whereas if you priced at market, you would receive 15 offers and they'd all shoot up and everything else, and they'd push you up to that aspirational number. In this market right now, you're probably not going to be seeing offers come in for that aspirational number. So we're looking at pricing your property accurately. That is going to be critical. Otherwise, you're just going to be selling your neighbor's house. Buyers right now, if you come in and the house is a couple days on market, don't get cute with your number. Just pick it up, get it gone. Otherwise, you're probably going to invite another offer to come in, and you're going to be looking at multiples. And we're back to where we were before. But if it's been on a week or two, maybe put in an offer that's a couple thousand less. Maybe ask for closing costs. Do something like that. See where that seller is at. Now, on the sell side, if you're at 14 days, I'm not panicking at 14 days. Over the last 2 years, okay, panic at 14 days. But not now. Not now. Now I'm settling in at 14 days. I'm not expecting to sell over the first weekend. And if you are, well, you maybe need to adjust your expectations given this current market. All right, so in about 10 days, we're going to have the latest inventory data, sales data for June. I'm going to come back and see where we are then in compared to this data that we've got right here. And I'll update you all. So are we going to be looking at wholesale declines in home values coming up? Not according to these numbers, not as things sit right now. Now, the Fed has indicated that they're looking at another hike and maybe 2 more hikes throughout the rest of the year. We'll have to wait and see on that to see what that does to our data. But right now, as things sit, we are looking at seasonal levels of showings. We are looking at a continual increase in listings, which is good. Our buyers are out there. They're active. We have supply for them to actually be able to shop around with. This is a healthy, moving market. Now, it's still seller-centric. It's still seller-centric, but it's not nearly as crazy as it was over the last couple years. All right, y'all. I'm Jeremy James with Lifestyle Real Estate. We'll see you all next time.